So it's 2 o'clock, and I will start the introduction for the second part of LIBES. I'd say good afternoon, everybody. As director of Payoke, I usually observe the development and progress of projects from the sideline, and usually there are no big surprises. This time, however, was different. I have to admit that I was utterly impressed by the objective, the size and the results of LIBES. The degree of commitment to the project, and even more so to the concept of long-term integration for victims of human trafficking shown by this consortium, in all fairness, left me in awe. LIBES is not a European-funded project about research and data trying to influence politicians or policies as such. It's about people. It's about the victims and their recovery process, long or short term. Although the differences in basic circumstances for victims in the different member states are sometimes huge, at the end of the day, it's about people and not about numbers. I can only try to express my tremendous gratitude to every individual collaborator in every partner organization who made this possible. And obviously, in particular to Emma and Sylvia, I'd say thank you so much, both of you. You did an incredible job. And as such, I am delighted to introduce the second part of the closing event of Life Beyond the Shelter. This afternoon, we will focus on the work that has been done by the LIBES project partners and all the staff involved from and beyond the field. We'll also have the pleasure to hear the contribution of representatives of organizations with which we created synergies and are participating today to enrich the debate and bring in their work and perspective. Now, the project itself, or the event itself, is divided in 3 sessions, which cover the main components and results of the project LIBES. In the first session, we'll talk about the independent living skills trainings. More than 80 workshops have been delivered to survivors of human trafficking, and I'm very proud of the enormous effort brought by the trainers to make this possible. The second session is dedicated to the Transition Housing Program, a pilot project that was implemented in Antwerp. 10 clients have been accommodated in individual apartments rented with the support of the Antwerp-based housing associations, Ideale Woning and Woonhaven. They were lodged in the units for a period of 1 year and received on-site assistance from Payoke and CAW. We consider the transition house by far one of the most ambitious activities that we've managed to realize within LIBES. In the third session, we will address the mentoring program and the synergies built around it. This component in particular has been challenged seriously by the public health restrictions imposed by the coronavirus, first and foremost, obviously, the social distancing regulations. Nonetheless, obstacles were overcome, and 45 survivors successfully matched with local volunteers. I admire the hard work and creativity that partners undertook to be there for our beneficiaries. Online communication, texting, calls, and meetings in all kinds of alternative locations were organized during the pandemic. Let me also remind you that in the new strategy on combating trafficking in human beings, the European Commission encourages all member states to put in place community-led and peer mentoring programs because they offer a unique opportunity for learning social skills, empowerment, and above all, network building to victims. Finally, I want to thank the LIBES Consortium for one last magnificent result. 54 semi-structured interviews conducted with clients helped us identify 8 main clusters of needs. You can read all about this in the Needs Assessment report, A World I Can Trust, available on the website of the project. Over 150 evaluation surveys were administered to beneficiaries. The regular involvement and monitoring of LIBES beneficiaries could not have been possible without the great dedication from the staff. And we're also very proud of the helplines that have been set up in Germany, Spain, and Belgium, and that allowed to help 41 clients in transition from the shelter to independent living. We counted over 1,000 calls where the clients were supported with their daily tasks. Now, next, I will give the floor to a partner of the LIBES Consortium, Fundació Surt, based in Barcelona. Surt works to eradicate gender discrimination and violence in all areas of social life and implement women's economic, social, and cultural right programs that allows them to empower themselves, value their identities, and gain self-power. Surt's activity is aimed at all women and offers specific programs to survivors of trafficking in human beings. They also specialize in capacity building programs and trainings. Within the LIBES project, Surt took the lead providing guidance for the independent living skill training sessions while ensuring the inclusion of gender-sensitive resources. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the introduction and having the pleasure to moderate this first section of the Practitioners Roundtable this afternoon. My name is Laura Sales. I am the head of knowledge and advocacy at Surt, this women's foundation based in Barcelona that we have participated in the LIBES project, coordinating specifically the training curriculum and contributing to its implementation in Catalonia. During this space, we'll have the opportunity to listen to a trainer from the Surt Foundation who will introduce the aim of this action and its implementation in Catalonia. Then another partner of the project, SOLWODI in Germany, will present their experiences implementing this training in their country. And finally, from the KVPS Foundation, we will have the pleasure to learn from a similar initiative outside of the LIBES project of an individual living training, but addressed to a different target group, that of people with mental disabilities. So without further ado, I give the floor to Laura Parés, social educator and researcher at the Surt Foundation in Barcelona. She will talk about the LIBES training curriculum that we have the pleasure to coordinate, as you just said, and the experience of implementing the training in Catalonia. Laura, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Laura. Well, before I start talking about our implementation here in Catalonia, I would like to briefly summarize, as you say, what this training was about and from where these initiatives comes from as coordinators of the action. And then I go deeply in some of the results of the implementation here in Catalonia. As many of you probably know, for many victims of trafficking, leaving the shelter is one of the most exciting and at the same time challenging stages of their recovery and integration processes. In many cases, they found themselves in a foreign country with modest local language skills and many structural barriers, that often make them feel alone, helpless, and overwhelmed. So with the aim to better know in which spheres of their daily life client needs more of our support, and of course also to contribute to their long-term recovery and integration. At the beginning of the project, we carried out a needs assessment coordinated by On the Road that, as mentioned before, involved 54 victims of trafficking and several professionals with experience in trafficking. And from this assessment, we identified some specific contents in which clients express their needs of more help or advice. With all this feedback, with all these contents identified, we designed an independent living curriculum that will be soon available on the LIBES website that provides case manager with a set of tools useful to offer clients everyday life guidance in different topics such as budgeting, household management, self-care, safety, among others. So after collect all this information and design this curriculum, all partners implemented this 2 pilot cycle of training in each of our local contexts. And we put in practice all these materials, but we also have the opportunity to assist which modifications or adaptations were needed to enhance the positive results of the project. Before reflect on our concrete experience in Catalonia, I would like to briefly introduce our organization and the profile of women that we attend, because I think that this could give some extra clues to better understand how we implemented this training and with which aims or challenges and strengths we face. No? So for those who don't know Surt, Surt is a Catalan foundation with more than 25 years of experience supporting women in their processes of autonomy. We are used to work from a feminist and intercultural approach, and we attend different profiles of women at risk of social exclusion. But when talking specifically about victims of trafficking, in Surt and in collaboration with another specialized organization named CAW and with the support of the Municipal Council of Barcelona, we have a specific program that attends 20-25 victims or potential victims of trafficking per year, with the aim to promote their empowerment in different stages of their autonomy processes and from a comprehensive view that takes into account and try to promote different spheres such as health, social participation, networking, training, employment. So in this program, we Surt mostly focused on provide career counseling, but from a skills approach that is based on to promote the recovery of resources and skills that women have acquired and developed in the different areas or periods of their lives in and out of the labor market, and giving them a value when women are going through processes of social and labor insertion. In order to adapt our intervention to the client's needs that we attend, this program is split up in 2 lines of attention. One, more focused to those women who are in a more pre-labor stage. I mean, women who need to carry out a preliminary work on physical and psychological recovery. And then we have another line focused on labor insertion, in which we attend women who find themselves more prepared to define and carry out a professional or career project. Considering all these specificities of our methodology and the profile of the women that we attend, in the framework of LIBES project, what we did, first of all, was to adapt the contents of the curriculum to the specific group involved, meaning that we consider if we were working with women in a pre-labor stage or in a more advanced stage of their recovery and integration processes. And considering these needs and these demands, we compiled those topics in which they express that they need less support, and we prioritized thus more urgent for them. For example, economic inclusion or public administration, that was the most demand modules to work on. With some other women, we also provide them with individual tutorials to foster the learnings of the training groups and giving a specific attention to their specific learning needs. Another aspect that we identified when we implement the first cycle of training was that in some cases, and for some specific topics, we as social workers do not have, or we don't feel that we have the necessary knowledge to implement some specific contents, such as labor rights, or more specifically talking about feminine sector and its rights and its labor conditions, or when talking about sexual and health care. So what we decided was to, for the second cycle of trainings, involve two external professionals with experience, one working in a gynecology service from the public health system, and another working in a trade union, so giving support to migrant women who are looking for a job. No? So with this involvement of these professionals, we enhance the effectiveness of these workshops, and we believe that it increased the impact to our clients. And before I end my intervention, and to ensure the LIBES sustainability, another action that we did, having in mind that we always work in collaboration with this other NGO named CAW that I mentioned before, was to train one of their social workers with whom we are used to work more, to help them to incorporate these new tools to their daily life and ensure that we all work in the same line. So finally, to close my intervention, I would like to recover some feedbacks from the participants of the workshop. One of the most common reflections from some of our clients was that they consider this training as one of their first group setting experience that they have, in where they were allowed to solve many daily doubts, but in an atmosphere of collaboration, of mutual support, of teamwork with other women that are in similar situations like them. They also consider that after the training, they were more aware of some of their skills and that they acquired more practical tools to promote their social and labor integration. And specifically when talking about the involvement of these external professionals, they say that having these new references gave them future possibilities to contact them if they need it, considering that they are public available, free of charge. So this is a new opportunity to increase their network. And that's all from my side. Apologize for the delay in my presentation. And thank you all for the attention. And I will be glad to answer all your questions at the end of the interventions. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Laura, for this introduction, for a reflection on the Catalan implementation, and for sharing the feedback of the clients who participated in the trainings. I'm sure that we will have the opportunity to continue working on the basis of the results of this very fruitful cooperation within the project, and to maximize or try to maximize the impact, the positive impact on our clients in our future work. I will now give the floor to SOLWODI, a second partner of the LIBES project, who also implemented this training in the country, in Germany. SOLWODI, Solidarity with Women in Distress, is an organization, a German organization, who assists migrant women in distress, victims of trafficking. They have 19 help centers around Germany, and 2 of them were involved in this LIBES project. In this section, we will have the pleasure to listen to Anya Wells, who will introduce the organization to us, and also Sofia Haneke and Veronika Richler-Czasecki. I'm trying to pronounce this right, sorry for my pronunciation. And they will talk about the implementation of the training in both of the centers involved in the project. So please, Anya, Sofia, and Veronika, go ahead.
Thank you, Laura. So at first, we would like to thank Payoke for organizing this event. We're really delighted that we are part of this project and can present on our results. And Surt, we would like to thank you, of course, for giving this presentation on Work Package 3 on our training curriculum. Thank you very much. And Laura for introducing us already. So a very brief on SOLWODI. Laura already said a few points on us. So we're an NGO based in Germany that focuses on migrant women in distress. We have over 30-year expertise in assisting, in particular, women that are victims of human trafficking and other forms of gender-based violence. Basically, we have a similar profile to Surt on the activities we do with our clients. We have 19 help centers throughout Germany, as Lara already mentioned, and 2 were involved in this project. So we had some regional impact as well, which was really nice. And yes, my 2 colleagues from 2 different cities, one from Osnabrück and one from the small city Bad Kissing in Bavaria, will speak about their trainings today. And yes, I would like to hand over the word to Sophia, who will kickstart.
Thank you, Anja. Yeah, so in the beginning of the trainings, we also had to adapt the curriculum to the needs of the clients. And for this, we involved the clients at the beginning to select topics and models and collected the needs and interests of the clients. And this collection was a guideline for the following trainings. And it was helpful to really meet the needs of our clients. And according to this, then we selected suitable tools of the curriculum to face their needs. So for example, we created a personal folder for all the administrational paperwork and others. And of course, Corona was difficult, and to comply with the national regulations and to keep the risk of infection as low as possible, we trained a constant group with the same participants in the first cycle who also lived together in a shelter and so counted as one household. This was more easy for us to face the rules, the regulations. And however, we had to rent larger room to also comply with the distance rules for group meetings. Yeah, and we also wanted to face the needs of some of our external clients, and therefore we decided to add individual trainings as well. And then in the first training cycle, it became visible that first of all, there's basic knowledge needed on different topics of the curriculum. For example, information about the labor market or orientation in the public administration system, or also the healthcare system. And then while running the trainings, we decided to continue the second cycle of the trainings with the same constant group of participants to deepen the topics we covered in the first cycle and to meet specific questions of the clients, building on the training before. For example, Module 5, Self-Care, Security and Safety of the curriculum, we talked in the first cycle about the healthcare system in general, where to find medical care, where to find doctors in the local context. And then in the second cycle, we talked about the topic, when do I feel good? What do I need to feel good? So the trainings based on each other in the first and in the second cycles. And for the individual trainings, we decided to do 3 of the models per client in the first cycle and 3 of the models in the second cycle. Yeah, so that was shortly how we implemented the trainings. And for a resume, I will hand over to Veronika.
Yes, I'd like to share some ideas about the lessons learned, best practices, and the sustainability. The participation and the activation of the clients in the beginning of the training was helpful to meet the specific needs of the women and the participation, and it guided us through the training. The adaptation of the curriculum for the national and local context proved to be time-consuming, as we needed to add forms, different procedures, additional material, and this needed to be prepared. We didn't expect that in the beginning. When we were able to have group sessions, it was nice that the women could exchange their experiences in times of social distancing. In the case of individual trainings, this was missing. Then another lesson learned was that the independent life skills training, it was a starting point from which our clients became aware of long-term integration aspects, but it needed follow-ups in the given topics by the social workers. For example, when it was about searching for house or searching for jobs. The training has motivated the participants to take new steps of independence, such as opening their own bank account, searching for a job, and they became able to express their needs. We will continue those type of trainings because combined with individual counseling, it had a great result for the participants.
Thank you, Veronica, Anya, and Sophia for your reflections, and thanks also for sticking to the set time in this very short session. Your work continues to inspire us and show that we'll have opportunities to continue working together. I remind all the attendants in this session that if you have any questions, feel free to write them on the chat and we will answer them at the end of the presentations. So moving on, before the end of this section, I would like to give the floor to the last, not least, speaker, Petra Rantamaki from the NGO KVPS, a service foundation for people with an intellectual disability, developing and providing support and housing across Finland and working internationally in several European projects. Petra Rantamaki is committed to promoting and improving human rights and full participation of persons with disabilities, working in KVPS as Director of Development Activities, and is responsible for the international collaboration as well. We're really glad to have you as today, Petra. Even from the perspective of another profile of clients, I'm sure that your expertise will contribute to enrich our reflection today and the importance of having independent living skills training to enhance clients' autonomy and empowerment. So please, Ms. Rantamaki, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me and can you see my presentation? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. And thank you for the invitation. I'm very happy to attend this event today. And I really believe that this kind of cross-sectional cooperation is very fruitful, and I'm very happy to be here. So today I'm telling you a little bit about how we are doing and supporting independent living and how our organization has been supporting persons with intellectual disabilities or other kind of support needs to live in communities. We have been doing that since the 90s, so we have a lot of experience in working together with people. So our aim is to work for a good life. We are finding individual solutions, and we are also providing high quality services across Finland. We are an NGO, and our sort of key topics are inclusion, equal opportunities, and full citizenship. We strongly believe in European cooperation, and we have development projects across Europe, and our organization is also a member of EASPD, the European Association of Service Providers for Persons with Disabilities. I work as a director of development activities, and these are sort of the key topics of our development work that we do in Finland and also in other European countries. So together with persons with disabilities and staff members, NGOs and families, we are creating models for inclusion and supported decision making. We are supporting independent living and active citizenship in communities. We are at the moment especially developing person-centered support and funding models, for example, personal budgets. And over the past few years in Finland in general, we have been supporting the transition from institutions to community-based services, which is going on across Europe. But especially when we were discussing about your project and about this event, I was very interested to share our ideas on how to support independent living. And we are doing this in two ways. We are supporting staff members and family members to support persons with disabilities. And we have been identifying sort of the key elements of the role of the staff in the process. And these are the findings that we have found. So it always comes to the respect of everyone's life story and voice. So the person with the support needs has to be in the middle and have to be based on his or her needs. It's about respect and self-determination. It's about supporting decisions and doing things possible, but not deciding on anyone's behalf. It's very much about focusing on strengths and skills, because we have learned that in many times people really need support in finding their strengths and also finding ways to dream and to have dreams about their own lives and giving space to that. It's a lot about building networks and social connections, because even if we are organizing housing, it's not enough. We need to make connections to the community, because the loneliness is one of the biggest threats for persons who are living independently. Good interaction and cooperation is sort of the key to success. We really focus on that the staff are present. They have this sensitivity in different situations. They are open and willing to listen, that they treat everyone with dignity and appreciation. And also that they focus on how we talk, what words we use, but also to focus on non-verbal communication. So what kind of facial expressions, intonations we use, and also that we give space to people and to families to express and handle emotions. That's very important part of the process. And also that the process needs to be respected. It's not easy. It can take a lot of time. Sometimes we have successes and sometimes there are a lot of difficulties. So we need to also respect that it takes time. We have also identified some sort of training modules of our independent living skills training. And when we were discussing about your project, we really identified that there are many similarities. So it's about communication, daily skills training, connections to the community, healthcare, crisis assistant, support for understanding the service system to get to be able to get services. It's about peer support. It's about working or studying. It's about how to live in your own home and how to take care of it. It's safety online and in person and in community. It's everyday rhythm and sleep. That's very important. Livelihood, money, social networks, loneliness, planning and decision making. So there are a lot of these elements that people need support. But when we have identified these elements, it's also easier for us to coordinate the support. So these are just some examples that our organization has also materials in English. So feel free to download them from our website. But I would like to end my presentation to a poem. It's written by Aino Suhola, and it says that my dreams are my dreams, not yours. I must make life my own truth. Walk beside me, hold the bridge, but do not live for me. Do not decide for me what is good for me. Thank you. I'm very happy to ask questions if you have, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Petra, for sharing your work methodology and the impact you are definitely making in your projects in Finland. And we still have some 5 minutes before the end of this session for some questions. I don't know if there are any questions in the chat. I cannot see it right now. Perhaps, Emanuela, you can help me.
No question that I have noticed, Laura. So if we don't have any question now, we can move on to the next session, and we will take those questions at the end anyway. So.
Okay, perfect. So let's move on to the next section on mentoring, on the mentoring program. And again, please do not hesitate to ask other doubts or concerns at the end of the event. Thanks again to all the speakers in this first session for your contributions, and thanks again to Payoke for the organization of this event. Payoke, I give you the floor now.
Thank you, Laura. Okay.
We hope there's no echo here.
Yes.
Okay.
Cool. All right. So thank you, Laura. Thank you so much for moderating this first session. Thank you, Klaus, for the introduction. You said a lot of things that help us transition from one session to the other. And so we're now starting the second session about the transition house. Transition housing. And the transition house, as Klaus said, was one specific pilot component that applied only to two partners in the project, CAW and Payoke, and it was implemented in Antwerp. Again, our starting point was the question, when people leave the shelter, they often face drawbacks. Many ups and downs in their healing trajectory. How can we make them more resilient at this particular time? And one of the answers that we found, or that we wanted to try out together with CAW, I see Paul de Grote is here. He was behind the transition housing project idea, was to try a transition house. Now, what is a transition house? Let's try and give a definition so we understand what we're talking about. When we mean by transition housing, we refer to a longer term living arrangement that follows residential care, meaning follows the shelter, and offers reinforced social service support towards self-sufficiency. That's how we have intended, we have conceived the idea of transition housing. So I will let my colleague, Erik de Knuder from CAW, give you more details about the execution of the transition program. What I can say here is that in general, this project, this component this pilot was intended as building a buffer zone between the shelter and independent living. The idea was, if the impact of independent living on traffic person's life can be tough, then the transition housing can be used to give people more time and a safe space to experience and discover things and build their self-resilience and discover things on their own. I really very much like, Petra, your presentation, what you were saying about our job being about building a safe space where people then can experience things on their own. They can grow on their own, grow at their own rhythm, and follow their own aspirations. And I think with the LIBES tools that we put in place from the independent living skills to the transition house, and then the mentoring, we really try to put this notion into practice. Now I will leave the floor to Eric. Eric is a psychosocial counselor at ASMODI, CAW Antwerp. CAW stands for Center for General Welfare, and it's an agency whose mission is truly broad, covers lots of fields, helping people in need in general as the general mission. There are many specialized branches in CAW, each with its own focus and target group. And our partner in LIBES is ASMODI. ASMODI is the shelter where our clients are accommodated. So basically, ASMODI's CAW is really Payoke's sister organization in this sense, because we support the same clients. Eric, thank you so much for being here with us, and we're ready for you.
Okay, thank you, Sylvia. Yeah, as you said already, I'm one of the social workers in the shelter, in the specialized shelter for people who are recognized as a victim of human trafficking, and we work close together with Payoke. I will now share with you my my presentation that I made about the transition program. Let me see. There we go. I think you can all see it. All right. So the transition program, it was specifically run in the LIBES project in the Belgium with the Belgian partners. So it was meant as a 1-year period where people were in this transition houses. So our goal was to help people transition from the shelter and the sheltered environment that it provides to independent living on their own. Because often, in our case, when people leave ASMODI, they are living in the private market and they still have the support of their social worker of Payoke. But as the needs assessment also showed, often they can be a bit overwhelmed by all the things of public administration and other factors that suddenly arise once you move from a shelter to living on your own. So obviously Payoke and CAW was working closely together, and we had help from the social housing associations that are active in Antwerp, namely Ideale Woning and Woonhaven. Both of them cover different areas in Antwerp where they have social housing programs. What did we? How did we set it up? We set it up to be a program for 10 clients that were staying in the shelter and would be going to live on their own. And they were staying in 2 different neighborhoods of Antwerp, because each social housing organization was in a different part of Antwerp. So we had 5 units in each area, and where we would be offering outreach support and do on-site visits and get hands-on with practical problems that could arise, or practical questions and needs to become independent. So yeah, I already talked about this, that the goal is to facilitate the transition. Yeah, the main reason why we did it, it's like we already provide a lot of information, a lot of help, and we already empower people while they are in the shelter. But some parts of what we are sharing with the people living in the shelter at that point is still theoretical because they are still used to be in a low threshold environment where there is every moment of the day a social worker present where they can go to with their questions and their needs. But when they live alone, they need to reach out to get this help. So we noticed that some people can be a bit overwhelmed by all of the practicalities of living alone, such as the administration, the energy bills and other parts that come into play once you live on your own. So while they were staying in the transition house, we could already go through these steps together with them because they would live on their own. They would have all of the amenities as you were living on your own, but still with the support of the social workers. So in this way, we were intending to increase their independent living skills and enhance the long-term integration and social inclusion for the participants. So the benefits of the transition program, it was not only the increased support, because instead of getting one social worker, people got two social workers, one from Payoke and one from Asmodee for a period of 1 year. It was also that they were getting affordable housing so they could create a financial buffer because the social housing project, it asks a lot lower rent than private market would be doing. So people were able to save that extra money or were encouraged to save that extra money so they would be having a deposit once they would move to the independent living. So affordable housing was an extra benefit. Also the time to get used to, for many of them, the new environment because they are living in our city and they are getting used to how our city works and what is there in the social map, but also in their private lives, things that are of their interest. So they had an extra year to get oriented in the area where they are living. And then of course, the transfer of theory to practice is not to be forgotten because we already could go through certain practical things, but now we could actually do them while they were happening, like opening up your electricity account, these things. Yes?
I was just wanting to propose if you want to advance with the slides, because you have this beautiful presentation, we really want to see it.
Okay, yeah, there we go. So the execution, it was we recruited participants from the shelter in the summer of 2020, explained to them and informed what the project would be about, which kind of extra help they would get. They would also have access to the other parts of the program, like the helpline and the buddy program, which will be talked about, the mentoring program later on. And then they were moving in the period from October to December. Which was quite intensive, but once they were installed in the apartments, we started the whole program, and then now we are in the process of preparing people to move out. The evaluation of the results of the project, there was an overall tendency of very positive results. We also had feedback from the participants, which
Sorry, it's just that we can't see the slides. I mean, the slides were still at the first slide. I was asking if you want to move on with the slides.
Okay, I thought you.
But if you don't want to, if you.
I am moving on with the slides, but I think there is a problem with the share screen then.
Okay.
I thought you guys were seeing all of the slides. I'm sorry for this.
No.
But then maybe I'm just.
There, we got it.
And do you see now the circles?
Yes.
Okay. So then we do it like this.
Yeah.
So okay, about the feedback and the results. So we had feedback from the participants as well. A survey, an evaluation survey showed that 57% of our people were very pleased with the program, and 85% of the people were saying that the transition program positively helped them towards independence. And mainly the reasons they gave were the ability to save money in the 1 year time, which helped them a lot in preparing to move to the private market, which requires a lot of startup money with the first month's rent and the 3 months of deposits that you need to pay in Belgium. Also, they mentioned the increased support from the social workers because they realized that normally they would have only one social worker, now they had two. And the helplines, of course, that were available for them to call if there was a specific need. There was also the case study done by Linde Leo from the university. And out of this also came an overall positive result of the transition program on the long-term integration and social inclusion of the participants. There are a couple of preconditions that need to be present. They are also present in the shelter, but they were also present during the transition program, and namely the feeling of safety and having a safe basis, and also a bond of trust and support with the people surrounding people who are being recognized as victims of human trafficking. So the advantage of the transition program was that the same social workers who were helping them already in the shelter were continuing the support while they were in the transition program. So they didn't have to restart and make a new connection with a new social worker. Then also the program offered conditions of personal growth through the learning opportunities. We did the workshops also with people in the transition house, and we could also give very tailored support on the specific needs of the people, because everyone is unique, of course, and has different needs and demands. So we could see, based on what people were asking of us and what they needed help with, we could see what we could offer them or what was there available for them during this 1 year. And also because it's all, the city where we live in is not that huge, but because of the units all being close together, it offered us an opportunity to be more present because of the proximity, both physically, but also socially. It was for them positive. I don't know, are you seeing the new slides now, or is it still stuck? Okay, so there are, of course, challenges to the program, namely for the sustainability of this program. If you would want to continue it, we would have to find a way to make the housing durable, because now it was set up for a 1 year period, and the partners also could offer it for this short period, but not for a longer period. The liability of who is taking care of the housing and the contracts should not lie with the NGO that is also supporting the people, and the people are recognized as victims of human trafficking, because then you can separate those two things, the financials and the social support we're offering. And there would be a need of funding for increased support, because now we were able to manage to do it within the LIBES project, but if we would continue it, I think we would look at getting more hours that we could invest every week in the people. And also what we noticed is that there comes a lot of stress with the moving in and moving out with furnishing an apartment. So we would opt for a program where the apartments are mainly furnished already, so that people can really focus on moving in, living there, and doing all the other stuff. And then when they have saved up money, can buy the furniture they want. To wrap up, I want to just say my personal experience in this program, because I was one of the social workers, one of the many, I must say, so I must also thank the other people involved. But what for me made it meaningful is that I don't have experience with our with the residents in the shelter once they move out, because once they move out, we wrap up our case management, and Payoke follows them up afterwards. So for me and for my colleagues of Asmodee, it was an opportunity to see the practical part of what people encounter once they move out of the shelter, and which kind of questions arise or which kind of challenges they face. And to see them and not just have it on theory or have it from hearsay. So it helped us also to integrate that better into the experience we offer them in the shelter. What I also noticed was that because of having two social workers, there was more of a feeling of continuity that we could offer to the participants. So if one of the two social workers was not available or was on a holiday, since we worked in a close tandem together, Payoke and Asmodee, we were able to cover each other's parts of the guidance. And people had a feeling that there was always someone around when they needed help with something. The same goes for the workload. You can spread the workload, and in the more complex cases, we were able to offer extra help that otherwise we would not have been able to offer for when people encounter certain challenges that they had in their experience in a transition house. So that's it for my presentation. Thanks for your attention. And if you would like to learn more, you can always go to the website, of course, where you can find more information.
Okay, thank you very much, Eric, for this comprehensive illustration of the transition program. You rightly mentioned Lean study. Lean is about I think it was in the fall of last year, the fall 2020, Payoke put out a research question for conducting a case study on the transition program through the University of Antwerp. And Lynn is a student in social work. She's actually a criminologist who was doing a master's in social work. She picked up our question and she wrote her master's thesis on the transition program. So her master's thesis basically became the case study for the transition program. You've seen the image on Eric's presentation, and turned out very nice piece of research. And she was actually, we just learned a few days ago that her research has been awarded the prize for global research by the province of Antwerp that goes to studies that contribute to the advancement of social causes. So we're very happy about that. And now I'm delighted to give the floor to Simona Barbu. Simona is a policy officer in FEANTSA. And FEANTSA is the European Federation of National Organizations working with the homeless. They are the only European NGO that focusing exclusively on the fight against homelessness. Their goal is to end homelessness in Europe. And FEANTSA works, has an extended network of over 120 members across 28 countries, including 24 EU member states. Their members are mainly NGOs working with homeless people, but also they include other stakeholders, key stakeholders in the fight against homelessness, such as municipalities, shelters, social housing providers, foundations, and research institutions. And FEANTSA advocates for the unconditional access to affordable, adequate, and safe housing for migrants within the EU, regardless of their immigration status. So now you see obviously the connection with our project. They underline that migration policies should target housing exclusion, and that further weight must be given to the conversation around access to emergency accommodation that is not conditional upon immigration status. And Simona, in particular, she is the policy officer in charge of homelessness amongst migrants. And she has also worked extensively with Roma communities in Romania and the European level, and we're very eager to hear from you. Simona, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I hope you can all hear me and see the presentation. Thanks a lot for the invitation today, and I'm very glad to have the opportunity to listen to everyone's experiences. I think this connects very well to our experience, as many of our members do the work on transitioning, and I will tell you a little bit later. I had prepared a short description of our work, but I think, Sylvia, you summarized it very well, and I am also aware of the time limitations. So I will just add that we have our secretariat in Brussels, where we organize our work around thematic areas. So we follow developments in concerning women's homelessness or youth LGBTIQ homelessness, as well as migration that I am in charge of. We are looking into health issues concerning homeless people, and we work for housing, to promote housing as a human right. Our organization is an umbrella organization established since 1989, and we are in constant dialogue with European institutions to promote policies that will contribute to ending homelessness. But we also do a lot of research in the area, and we organize experience exchange and facilitate learning amongst our members and also other relevant actors in the field. So before going into the main topic of today's conversation, I would just like to give you a few data, a short overview on homelessness in Europe. Unfortunately, homelessness has been increasing in the past 10 years, and we have seen an increased number of people sleeping in the streets in all, but also in unsafe accommodation in all member states, with the exception of Finland, who has had a more progressive policy and has implemented housing first, which allowed them to ensure housing to a higher number of people. So based on a methodology implemented by FEANTSA in 2009, we know that that each night in Europe, there is an estimate of 700,000 people who are experiencing homelessness. And homelessness is also changing in the sense that it's affecting people for a longer period, and it's affecting diversity of groups. This is why our work is also trying to touch upon a diversity of people. Now, specifically regarding third country nationals and asylum seekers and refugees, you can see some data here, and I am happy to share the presentation afterwards if you are interested. But there is a confirmation that third country nationals are overrepresented in the number of the homeless population in the past years in all the countries where data were available for. And despite the lack of a comprehensive data, we can see that percentages of non-EU individuals being homeless are high in countries such as Spain, Sweden, Belgium, or England. In Greece, of course, we can see that over a quarter of the unaccompanied minors are sleeping rough. And many of them, of course, are, and they have contact with FEANTSA members once they reach the shelters. And oftentimes, these are the only support resources that they can go to. During the pandemic, of course, the situation has become even more dire, and more people have lost their income, which has obviously meant that they were at a higher risk of homelessness. So why is it that we are seeing this increase of number besides the pandemic, but in the past 10 years, why have we seen an increase in the number of third country nationals among the homeless population in Europe? Well, the causes are, of course, complex. And to begin with, in general, in Europe, we are experiencing a crisis in housing. We do not have enough affordable and adequate housing. Rent prices are increasing, and non-EU nationals are, of course, they're at a higher risk of being overburdened by housing costs. To understand migrants' needs, we also need more research. And this is one thing that we are working on at FEANTSA, but of course, we would need to have a better understanding of people's needs for inclusion and what are their experiences of destitution. And for example, one of our last papers focused on women, migrant women specifically, where we've learned that they do have specific needs in accessing accommodation. For instance, if they are residing irregularly, so they don't have a regularized status. Apart from the general lack of access to housing and emergency accommodation that irregular migrants have, women in particular struggle to access shelters, for instance, because of lack of offer, or because in some cases they need to pay a small fee and they cannot afford. There is also a gender-based violence aspect and the dependent migrant status, where women are depending on their spouses to obtain a regular status in Europe. So therefore, they in situations of domestic violence, they have two options oftentimes. One is to live with domestic violence or becoming irregular and homeless. And then moving forward, in the case of the beneficiaries of international protection, they continue to face numerous challenges in transitioning from the reception centers to mainstream accommodation. And many become overstayers within the reception system, or they are at risk of experiencing homelessness. And these challenges include aspects related to legal and administrative obstacles, or the inability to access public funding. Oftentimes there is insufficient time allowed to those who obtain refugee status to search for mainstream accommodation. So they are being asked to leave the state provided accommodation in 30 days after they obtain the international protection, which is not enough to find accommodation for someone who doesn't know the language, most definitely, and they might also have, of course, trauma and all these experiences. And then there's, of course, discrimination that people are facing with at an everyday level, but also when they try to rent and to access accommodation, that also happens. On the other side of the screen, you can also see some points where of examples of methods that our members are implementing, and we are also working on this to overcome these challenges, but I won't go too much into detail now, also because of lack of time. I will just move to the last point, which is what are we advocating, what are we asking for in order to improve housing for migrants. So we at FEANTSA, we strongly believe in implementing the model housing first, which is, of course, as the name says it, offering housing first. This has demonstrated unprecedented success in solving homelessness for those considered hardest cases. And we believe that safe housing creates the basis for accessing labor market, education, training, and overall integration in societies. We advocate for providing migrants with long-term housing solutions, and we also are very aware of the importance of this support system, of the accompanying services that come that are needed in all these areas, because people need support, as you were also mentioning earlier, in the transitioning process. And like I said, many times our members act in this regard as well. And they had been working to develop their own skills in this sense, because the traditional approach many years back, maybe they didn't have that much contact with migrants, so they have been constantly working to improve their work on this. So, and finally, of course, we work at policy level to encourage and to promote addressing homelessness among migrants in the EU political initiatives, which oftentimes create more risks for people to end up in homelessness. So we try to raise awareness around that. And yeah, I think this was it from my side. I hope I managed to keep the time, and looking forward for any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Simona, thank you so much. I think this was a brilliant presentation that really, I think it resonates with the work we've done in so many levels. I can relate to what you said about transitioning, the difficulties of transitioning to mainstream accommodations, discrimination, and the barriers that are there that are specific to gender. I think it really resonates with the work we do, and with the assistance and problems and the issues we face with our clients in the support we provide to our clients that are in this situation. And certainly it also reflects and it was certainly relevant also to the work of many of our partners that do not only support victims of human trafficking, but also other vulnerable populations and groups, including people in poverty. And I think most of them, I think of On the Road and Surt and SOLWODI, I think, and CAW. So we're the only one, basically. We're the only one who only support victims of trafficking, but it was important for us to have you here to really expand the conversation. And because when you have when you keep the conversation amongst the usual suspects, you lose something. You lose insight into more ideas, into different ways of doing things, and possibly chances to build synergies, to advocate together, to start advocating campaigns perhaps together, because really it's the same fight. As you said, we think, I believe we tend to think of housing as something they have to do, right? The people have to find a house. It's something to tick on the list of integration. And so often we forgot this is actually a human right. To have access to adequate and affordable housing. So thank you very much for your presentation, Simona. I'll check if there's any questions in here.
No question yet.
So I will then move to the mentoring session, because there's a lot to say in there as well, and then we'll come back to the questions for all the three groups in case we do have comments or questions. Thank you. Manuela, for you.
Thank you, Silvia, and all the speakers that have contributed so far. I'm glad to present the speakers of this session dedicated to mentoring and to different approaches that had been put in place by project partners with the help of external organization and different experts who will join the conversation as well. I would like to stress that the consortium members participating in LIBES and never used mentoring before. Therefore, this activity has been a pilot for all of us. The first speaker, well, I'm very glad to introduce one of our project partners and long-lasting ally in the fight against human trafficking, On the Road Cooperativa Sociale. On the Road works for the promotion and protection of the human rights of the survivors of human trafficking within the Italian social assistance and integration program for trafficked persons. On the Road offers accommodation, as we were talking about, protection, social, psychological, and legal counseling, vocational guidance and training, and direct insertion into the labor market. These services are provided also thanks to a wide multi-agency network in the 3 regions of the Adriatic coast where On the Road directly works: Marche, Abruzzo, and Molise. On the Road will present their experience and results as regards the setup of the mentoring program, which has been entirely managed in-house. So I give the floor to Silvia Visconti and Elisa Ricci.
Thank you, Emanuela, for your presentation of our organization. So I'm Silvia Visconti, and I coordinated the LIBES project with in Italy. So here with me there is Elisa Ricci, who also took care of coordinating the project during my maternity leave. We are both very satisfied with the whole the LIBES project, and in particular with the peer mentoring program. Although we had coordinated a small number of couples, we can say that we really appreciated the potentiality of this activity. I'm going to briefly explain our experience. Since the early stages of the project, of the buddy program, we have involved several social workers supporting victims in the shelter, and we involved them as volunteer coordinators. We have trained them on this activity, and we have thought together the victims in the shelter who could more have benefits from this experience. After that, we thought to involve some former victims of human trafficking who were connected with the community. And we involved some locals who were performing some voluntary activities with our association. We proposed the peer mentoring program, and then we let them to decide if they wanted to participate. We asked to call us, and when they contacted us to participate, we tried to investigate the motivation, and we tried to understand, we tried to exclude the risk of secondary victimization. And only when we were sure that we were excluding these risks, we included them in the program. After having individually talked with the mentors and the mentees, we have introduced them each other and let them to start the activities. We have involved 6 couples, included 6 mentees that were victims of lab or sex exploitation, and we involved 6 mentors. 3 of them were former victims of lab or sex exploitation, and 3 of them were locals living and working in the area. During the first phase of the peer mentoring program, the mentors and the mentees were forced, due to the COVID restriction, to meet online, and only later it was possible to meet in person. During the online meetings, they knew each other. Some of them decided to improve their language skills. Some of them learned how to use the smartphone application, such as Google Maps. And some of them, they tried to read the bus schedules on the website. During the second phase of the peer mentoring program, there was the possibility to meet in person. They saw each other, and some mentors supported the mentees in their job research, for example, by delivering the curriculum vitae, and others supported the mentees during medical visits, or simply going out together and discussing about their future. Some couples have continued their relationship, and the deep friendships were born. In all the critical situations, instead, the difficulties were addressed and clarified by the volunteer coordinators, who helped to make sure that there were no misunderstandings. Overall, in general, we can say that the volunteer coordinators, the mentors, the mentees highlighted this experience as a great opportunity of growth and learning. They mentioned that such an experience requires a long time to get the benefits, and that meeting in person is essential for knowing better each other. Okay.
Good afternoon to everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to share our experience. With Silvia, we try to explain our experience of the peer mentoring program, and now we were going to show you a video that we prepared using the words of two participants of the in the program. I try to share the screen. Please tell me if you can't see or. Sorry.
We can see, Elisa.
Okay, thank you.
Siamo conosciute a questo inizio anno, a marzo più o meno, abbiamo fatto prima degli incontri insieme al mentor e agli altri utenti, e poi abbiamo iniziato a vederci da sole, principalmente videochiamata perché c'era l'emergenza sanitaria, e poi abbiamo iniziato anche a vederci di persona quando la situazione è stata un po' più distesa, tranquilla.
Because the first thing I didn't know that maybe for my own mind, I think maybe she cannot be the kind of person maybe I want. Maybe she can't talk to me. So then later going on, for me she's nice, she's okay.
Sono molto timida e quindi invece poi quando ci siamo viste di persona ho capito che era magari una maschera davanti alla telecamera, perché è una cosa strana parlare con una persona che non conosci davanti alla videocamera, e invece poi quando ci siamo incontrate di persona è una persona molto solare, molto allegra e simpatica, insomma.
Julia did not make things difficult for me. She just came as a friend, she didn't come as a teacher.
No, ci siamo trovati abbastanza bene fin dall'inizio, perché anch'io davanti alla telecamera ero un po' timida, quindi eravamo diciamo gli stessi input una verso l'altra, e poi invece quando ci siamo conosciute anche io mi sono sbloccata parecchio, e quindi è stato veramente semplice, come una persona con cui avevi già avuto dei rapporti, comunque con cui già conoscevi da tempo.
Julia is nice, she's a good girl, so she's my friend. Sometimes I'll just go and let us walk around, take a cup of caffè or pizza.
Una volta lei mi ha chiesto di accompagnarla a consegnare il curriculum per cercare lavoro, e alla fine di questa giornata in cui abbiamo camminato e chiacchierato per tutto il pomeriggio, alla fine una signora a cui aveva lasciato il curriculum l'ha richiamata e adesso sta lavorando nel suo hotel.
When we went to go and check for a job, she already told me that she only followed me there, but she will not speak for me. I need to speak myself. I said no, because the language is very difficult for me to. He said no. She knows that I can do it. So Jessica, you can do it. I know you can. So go, which I did. So I'm happy about that.
Anche se due persone vengono da due mondi completamente diversi, possono avere un sacco di cose in comune, ovviamente nella quotidianità.
From the work before I can go to somewhere to check for a job by myself or to speak by myself, but she gave me that confidence. So I still need one thing to learn from her.
Spegni se vuoi. Okay, thank you. We finished.
Thank you, On the Road, for your presentation and for deciding to share this video yesterday evening. It's very bello, as we say in Italian. It gives us the possibility to hear the voice from the people involved in the project, and also they give us a real sense of what mentoring is. It's about empowerment support. It's about accompanying someone. I move on to the next speaker. I'm pleased to give the floor to ArmenTeKort Director Theo Vaas and Robert Leisen. ATK is an Antwerp-based mentoring association who connect underprivileged citizens to body. During LIBES, Payoke and CAW entered in a partnership with ATK, and they manage the body program for our clients. ArmenTeKort not only provided valuable support with the body program, but also during our research phase, which resulted into the mentoring ebook. As an external specialized association with long-standing experience in this field, ArmenTeKort champions a mentoring model based on empowerment and personal development. They will tell us more about their core values and model and the experience with the clients of Payoke. And I leave Theo and Robert to take the floor. You decide the order.
Okay, great. You see my colleague Robert, so all the difficult questions he can answer. I will just very briefly maybe give one small section of our contribution to this discussion, to this very valuable discussion. Of course, I heard a lot about the housing issues by FEANTSA, and I think this is very important, not only for people who live in poverty, but also people living near poverty or other distressed situations. We see this is happening in Europe on a large scale. A lot of things are changing, and we want to make a fundamental contribution to this. You see here the Ashoka logo for those of you who wish to make fundamental system changes. I strongly recommend you join and learn from the Ashoka organization. If I can share my screen just for 1 second. There we go. The housing situation is in the lower section of this model. Most of you recognize this model. It has nothing to do with Maslow, but this is a very useful tool that we use to define where we work, what we do, and especially what we do not do. So housing is important. ATK, the body project that Robert is a specialist on, is not dealing with this. But it's very important. Then the behavioral changes that we do is, of course, part of your skill set development programs that you all share and are experts in, both behavior and capability strengthening. The arrows in this diagram are very important because the dotted arrow means that the level below can influence the higher level. So in this case, bad housing will influence the behavior of people often, not necessarily. Some people will manage and some will not. In the downward direction, however, you see a full line. Dillitz and Bateson, the developers of this model, teach us that going down in this model is defining. In other words, it is not maybe influencing, it is defining for sure. So if you want to develop the capabilities of your clients, in a lot of cases this will work. But in the cases where their self-esteem is low, where their belief system in themselves is low, no matter what you do, carrot or stick, it will not work for a lot of people. So that is why we decided that the focus of our buddy system is we train volunteers in a difficult skill set. We train them to give attention, not help. And by giving attention to their destitute or stressed buddy, we call both of them buddies, they will increase the self-esteem of the person in distress. And by doing so, then we enable the person in distress to himself or herself take new decisions about the training skills, the training sets that they wish to develop. And Dillets and Bates teach us that once you develop the capability, the behavioral change comes automatically. It follows as a natural course. And people behaving differently will definitely change their environment by themselves. They will find solutions, they will make solutions. Voila, this is in a nutshell one of the models that we use. This is supported by Rappaport, by Amartya Sen, by Jean Dreze in India. It is supported by many Dutch scholars and in Belgium by Professor Tine van Regelmortel. So it is really a very well thought of model and we're happy to share it at this occasion. If you want to know in real life how it works and how we apply it, Robert, of course, is the ideal person to speak with. I hope I've kept this brief enough to fit your very stringent schedule. Please feel free to feedback or response by chat, email, or anything that is convenient for you. Thank you. Back to the chair.
So thank you, Theo, for the brief explanation about ATK. So I think that's also the main distinction between our mentoring program and other mentoring programs within the LIBES project. The distinction is that we don't focus upon independent living skills training, but we focus upon rebuilding self-esteem and rebuilding self-confidence with the mentee. So we don't train the mentee to become we don't train the mentee about housing, but we train the mentee, we train the mentors and in a 2-year, so we train the mentors in a 30-hour buddy training course. And in that training course, we teach them how to build a strong relationship with somebody who's underprivileged and to not fall into a caretaker's role, a professional caretaker's role. So that's what the training course with ATK is all about. And when the mentors are trained, we bring them together with a mentee, and we ask them to spend time with each other once a week in a 2-year buddy trajectory. So we are aiming at a durable relationship, not a short-term relationship in which we focus upon living skills training, but a long-term relationship in which we focus on reinforcing one another by informal contacts. And what we see is quite amazing. So we see that people feel appreciated again. If you have that one person in life on which you can rely, somebody is not expecting anything from you, who is just there for you and is willing to spend time with you, just doing activities together, that can really reinforce one another. And the numbers are also quite remarkable. So Payoke registered 32 clients, so 32 victims of human trafficking, of which 22 clients are currently in a buddy trajectory. We had a few dropouts, I think 6 people in total due to psychiatric confinement, sometimes language improficiency, or just big life changes like work, childbirth, and others. And I had a conversation today with one of my previous clients, because in the past I also worked with Payoke, and she told me that by just hanging out with her buddy, she felt appreciated again. She felt like she could be a human being again. She's been through a lot in life in the past, and also her residence permits and the procedure for victims of human trafficking in Belgium is quite insecure, and it brings a lot of stress to the clients. So it's a moment they can escape from reality and just feel like human beings again. And that's what it's all about, hanging out with each other and trying to reinforce one another through informal contact. And that's what ATK stands for. So I'll give the floor to Sylvia Simon, I think, and thank you for listening.
Yeah. Thank you, Robert. Well, that makes it even faster, people, because I'm the last one of the day. Are you keeping it up? Heavy stuff. Thank you so much for inviting me for this conference. I believe that the reason I'm here with telling you about our European network and community is just also to reach out to you and say you are not alone in this incredible adventure, developing a mentoring methodology for a very specific target group and situation, because there are more people out there. And Robert, the sentence you said, kind of what do you call it, goosebump sentence, that people feel humans again. I had to think just a couple of months ago, I heard the same statement from a mentoring programs for immigrant population. So isn't that incredible? That's how it touches people's lives. But thank you for having me here. My name is Sylvia. I'm community manager of the European Center for Evidence-Based Mentoring. We are basically a network, a community for mentoring practitioners and researchers from all over Europe since 2016. We're in the north of the Netherlands, but we serve the whole continent, from Turkey to Norway, Russia to Italy. Just anybody who is developing anything about mentoring, because I think you will recognize it when you go for this development to set up something in mentoring, you tend to feel alone in it. I also saw that with Sylvia and Emanuela, because you have a specific target group, you're there in your city. So that's why we thought we need a bigger community to keep learning from each other. Also, there were so many people out there with European projects creating fantastic innovations. And then the project is done, and then how can you keep that innovation, share it with others? So we thought we want to have something sustainable. That's what practitioners thought. So we just simply started it out. And that was 5 years ago now. And so basically we've been since then building in the mentoring field and encouraging people, especially encouraging people to do more with mentoring, no matter how small or large the scale, doesn't matter, just start it out. We've been also breaking through the language barriers everywhere in Europe, because nobody was calling mentoring. I mean, do you see it in front of you? I mean, just take a look at Italy or France. Mentoring has been there for ages, but nobody was calling it mentoring or buddying. So you could never really connect to others outside your country because you were not understanding that it's the same that you're doing. So I think that's also a big advancement, that people tend to call it more mentoring and buddying in the later years. Basically, our goal is to understand more about how mentoring works, how we can connect people better to each other and in which conditions, and ultimately how to create purposeful, meaningful relationships where mentors and mentees reach the impact that they want to go for. By the way, has any of you guys heard of us before, or can you just put it in the chat? I'm always very curious if people have heard about us before. So if you could just put in the chat yes, then I go like yes. Or if you go like no, then it's also good, because this is my chance today. We've been offering summits, the next one in May, to learn from each other, workshops, book clubs, newsletters. We advocate in Brussels to show to policymakers that mentoring is an important instrument. I heard from Sylvia that it's there now also in your very specific target group at the European Commission. So that brings opportunities, I believe. So just very briefly about what the mentoring field looks like in Europe, very diverse. It is there for elementary school children, for university school people, for university students, for young entrepreneurs to scale up, for very vulnerable target groups, for just about any type of groups of people that you can think of. The field is very, very diverse in sizes, from very small mentoring programs in Germany supporting elementary school children up to huge large-scale programs in France covering the whole country. So very, very diverse. There are NGOs organizing it, schools organizing it, social enterprises, just like yourself, very diverse group. But I think I can state that the real growth of mentoring was due to the growth of the immigration population in Europe. So that's when people felt the need to connect people to each other in societies to create more, as you would say now, more inclusive societies where people feel at home. You will also notice that just like in your work, mentoring is very often a part of different interventions like language lessons or regular education or community building or therapy even, like in your case. So very often organizations choose to set up mentoring as an extension of the work that they do with professionals as well. So to keep that their clients or groups or young people can keep the strength that they built up with professionals when they enter the next phase of their lives. You might recognize that that is also something that happened in your own mentoring and budding activities. So we have loads of research on why mentoring works, and absolutely not in your sector or field. So I'm very curious if it will come in the future, but we do know from research, and that's why we all love mentoring, is that it has a huge effect on people when you match them well. They grow really much in self-esteem, in network, in the feeling to feel empowered and independent, the sense of belonging in that part of the community, and especially to be able to make informed choices, conscious, informed choices for their future, if it's just life or career or study or anything else. And it always happens in very small steps, just like in the film of On the Road. It was a beautiful film because it says a lot more than a lot of words. So the only thing I wanted to say today is, well, for one thing, don't leave the mentoring community, stay with us so that we can learn from you. And secondly, again, congratulations for developing this very specific methodology and testing it online. What a challenge, incredible, you didn't give it up. And so it's wonderful that you developed this so that people can keep the strength that they built up in all your activities of your specialized professional work, and they take it with them for their future and learn more people for their everyday life. So thank you so much, and I hope to see you back in the future. Thank you, Emanuela.
Thank you, Theo, Robert, and thank you, Sylvia. I told Sylvia several times that for me, she's a role model, and with her and the center, we discovered a whole community, practitioners and researchers around mentoring. Sylvia and I really discovered a new word. We received a question in the chat for this session, and I'd like to give the floor to Theo or Sylvia if they care to answer. The question is how to ensure long-term support from mentors. I still need ideas, strategies to motivate them. This comes from one of our partners and a social worker. So they are probably looking for solutions to ensure that volunteers stay in the program.
I think Theo has already left, so I'll speak for him. So how to motivate mentors in a long-term perspective? It's a good question, and that's what I do mostly. That's my job, probably. So what we do, like every 3 months, we offer, I think it's 6 evenings. We call it a supervision. So during those evenings, mentors have the opportunity to think about a situation they want to bring forward in the group. So it can be a difficulty they experienced within the buddy trajectory. Most of the time it's my buddy, he's lying, or I cannot reach the person, or the person is experiencing psychological difficulties. How can I cope this problem? Or a lot of times it's also about I'm actually helping this person quite a lot, and I'm feeling like our relationship is shifting to a relationship of a professional caretaker, and that's not what an ATK buddy trajectory is about. And that's what we talk about in groups. So there are always group sessions with, I think, 30 people in total. We split them up, groups of 6, and then we just do a little brainstorm. Okay, how can we cope this problem? So that's one thing, the supervisions. Also, we have master classes. So if we see during a supervision that a topic is coming up a lot of times, like my buddy is lying, then we make a master class of this topic, and we see with our professional educator how we can put a master course together, which answers we can offer, and which guidance we can offer. So that's also one way. And of course, we are 24/7, not 24/7, I'm lying. between 9 and 5 p.m. We are available by mail and phone call to check with our buddies. So that's what we do. Yeah.
Of course. Silvia La Monaca will say something about this component. If you still have projects, don't hesitate to write them down. Questions, sorry.
No, I just thank you, Robert, for these tips that you're giving our partners. If I can try to interpret a little bit the question here. We as Payoke and CAW, we were really lucky with this project component because we were able to rely on a solid partner like ATK, who basically did all the job. Our other partners find themselves in the situations where they activated a new service, a new program. It turns out that it works. And now the question will be sustainability. How do you make it sustainable after the funds, the EU funds end? What will be your advice, Sylvia and Robert? And this is a $1 million question. How do you keep a service running when you don't have money anymore? I think one of the possibilities based on our experience is to work with associations on the ground that already do this job and can help. Is this a viable solution? And what would you do where these associations are not there? Who can provide a similar support to what a mentoring association does? Like thinking, for example, volunteers associations or something like that. Would they be able to do the job?
If I could react to that, Sylvia? Yeah. I would say it's a challenging topic, you say, especially the more vulnerable the population you do, the more carefully you have to think about how to organize mentoring for them. Because we know from research that if you don't do it well, you bring in harm, and you don't want that, because as a therapy or social workers, you build up something, so you don't want it to be broken down. So as easy it may seem, because you work with volunteer mentors, still you do need professionals on board to organize it and to create a sustainable structure, because the stronger your program, the longer the mentors stay. And isn't it fantastic when you can even rematch a mentor a second time or a third time, because the longer they stay, the better they become at it. So the bigger impact. And you do need a program organization for that. So what you see with NGOs is that they apply for very specific funding for that specific target group that they serve. And otherwise, if you cannot build at least some kind of paid professional system around the volunteer mentors, then you cannot offer the continuity in building a network, and especially the knowledge, which is so needed for your target group. Thank you.
So there, Sylvia, retention is key here, from what I understand from your answer, from your elaboration. Retention, volunteer retention is key as well.
What you see with Europe, and when you compare Europe and the United States, and I'm sure you guys looked at US-based activities in human trafficking, because they also have huge amount of tools and knowledge. You do see that, especially in mentoring and body activities, the strength of Europe is that mentors stay with you. They join you once, and then you can rematch them, and they become really, really better and better at it. So that is what is happening in European mentoring activities and budding activities. And that is very impressive. That's why Canadians keep visiting us, and Americans and Australians, because they admire that in Europe, people stay with you on a longer run so that you can teach them to do it even more. But they only stay with you if they feel that they are part of a community, a mini community, and that if they feel appreciated. So just like in any other work, mentors want to be seen, appreciated, and supported, coached in their process. So, and the moment you manage to build that, you have the most fantastic network of ambassadors for your work, because they are from everywhere in all sorts of life. So they might even be able to help you finding new funding and networks and more mentors. They are the best recruiters, the very best recruiters.
Yeah, thank you, Sylvia. And I think that's also the experience of ATK, because your trajectory mentoring, the typical mentoring relationship, if I'm not mistaken, Robert, in ATK lasts for 2 years. Yes, and we're very happy. Our clients are going to stay. Coming back to the good results that you were commenting on, Robert. So we got to the point where the head of our social work team said we feel that we should propose the mentoring program to all our clients. I mean, this is I think this is huge, and there's been a lot of people enrolling, a lot of people showing interest. We run an evaluation recently. We had the clients answering some surveys, and the comments we got from them really gave us goosebumps. Sylvia, as you were saying, there was one that really stuck with me. One girl who said, "You know, my buddy is my best friend," and that really tells volumes about two things. One, the level of isolation of these people, because this person was possibly at that point like 3-4 months into the body program, so not much. If in 3-4 months your body is your best friend, that tells a lot about how isolated and how much human contact our clients need. And on the other hand, of how empowering this program can be when it is implemented effectively.
Yeah. So is there anyone who has comments, feedback, questions for our speakers and panelists? Who would like to enrich the debate, or just a comment? So I don't see questions arriving in the chat for now. I do have a question that goes back to the Transition House, to Eric, who gave us a splendid presentation. Eric was a big part of the Transition House and the mentoring as well, and we know that you know very well your clients, Eric. But we were wondering if the Transition House experience made you know them even more, or if you have learned something with them that you discovered something new from this practice.
Yeah, that's true. Like you said, we got a chance actually to get to know our clients, so to speak, better, the people in the Transition House, because we had a lot of more and longer interaction time. This also gave us the opportunity to see see them evolve and to grow further on their trajectory towards independence. I mean, I think that's for us the main thing, what we took away also. Like you say, Sylvia also said it, the human connection is very important. And of course, we are professionals and we are in a professional situation. But because of the longer term that you can work together, the trust, the bond of trust is higher, and you can have more effect. But it works in both ways, because we also are learning from them.
Thank you, Eric. Sylvia, I would like as well to ask a question to Surt or SOLWODI, going back to the session where we talked about independent living skill trainings. Our external evaluator, Katerina, was here today, and that we also thank for her work with the evaluation of the project, reported that the independent living skills workshop were one of the most successful components of the project. So if you have anything to add about your learnings with the beneficiaries or your lesson learned, would be very nice if you want to add anything here.
So I don't know if but if not, I can say a couple of things, and then I think most about this implementation regarding sustainability and for future implementations. It's how we will adapt in each of the cases that we implement. Once again, this training, the specific needs of women that are constantly changing. As this training to the whole board that we provide them in our program that usually try to identify these skills that they already have, recover them and continue developing it, no? So that will be like some of the challenges that we will continue implementing it, having into account their own needs and their own processes and their specific demands.
So what is anything to add, or?
Yeah, we are really happy because next week we're going to have our national event, and we also have a lot of SOLWODI colleagues coming, so we hope that we can like internally also make use of the curriculum that other people from our organization adapt it as well. Yes, and we will continue using the information, and I think Sophia and Veronica had a nice short resume, so basically there's nothing to add except that we want to continue working with the documents that we produced.
Thank you, Anya. Thank you, Laura, as well, for your last words. Silvia is going to wrap up the meeting.
Yes, I'll just add something about the mentoring that I copy-pasted into the chat, the link, just in case anyone missed the link to the ebook we published. And again, thanks to Robert and Sylvia, they were some of the main contributors to this ebook. We knew that we couldn't do it alone. It's not a handbook. We didn't call it handbook. We weren't that ambitious. It's just a publication that compiles, that illustrates our experience with mentoring, and that we hope it can be a basis for other organizations who want to experience a buddy program, for other victim support organizations that want to experience mentoring for their own. And in this regard, I would also like to mention that we put another research question out, this time with the University of Leuven, last year about mentoring for victims of human trafficking, and it was selected by a student from the faculty from the sexology department. So this student is actually working on a research on a thesis about mentoring for trafficked persons. So the research goes on, Sylvia, that kind of goes into the direction you were indicating, that more research is needed. That certainly will be a contribution. And now I'm going to wrap up because it's been a long day for everyone. It's Friday and there's a lot of Zoom events around. There's a lot of Zoom fatigue around. So I think we're all happy to start our weekend. And of course, let me wrap up just by thanking everyone who stayed in the morning session, afternoon session. Thanks to all the presenters, and special thanks to the donor, the European Commission, for their generous support, and the project partners. I cannot mention them all because it will be a very long list. So I'm just going to mention the project managers, knowing that there's been very large teams working on the project activities. So Eric de Gnodder and Paul de Grote for CAW Antwerp, Silvia Visconti e Visarici from on the road Cooperativa Sociale, Italy, Anya Wells from SOLWODI, Germany, Laura Perez and Laura Sales from Fundació Surt, Anthony Verhasselt from Payoke, and Emanuela, who's been the heart and soul of this project, and Klaus, who's been a fantastic supporter and a problem solver throughout. And again, thank you, everyone. And we are there. You've got our emails and contacts if you want to know more, or just catch up with us, you know where to find us.
Special thanks as well to Silvia La Monica. I speak on behalf of all partners, saying that she was supervising everything, any details. She's an amazing and excellent program manager and project manager. Thank you all as well. Bye. Have a nice weekend.
Bye.